Sarah, so great to see you.
Hi, David.
How are things in southwestern Ontario?
Oh my gosh, it is an absolutely gorgeous day. It is November, but it feels like it is September. It's absolutely stunning and wonderful and gorgeous.
I'm sure your views are just like mine.
Oh, well, maybe not quite as much water, but very nice all the same.
We also get it coming down this way as well. But so Sarah, you talk about magnifying greatness, and I love that thought. So I work with a wide variety of clients in a wide variety of industries in Canada, the United States, a little bit Europe and South America on occasion. And
Mm-hmm.
they're all quite different. So many different cultures, many different approaches to what's appropriate and not in terms of acknowledging and rewarding people. So are there any principles that you say, these would say seem to have universal application? Like these are the basics that just about anyone needs to do to get right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's such a great question because so often we try to overcomplicate things. We try to think of what's the system approach? How are we going to make this really big and broad and it's going to be consistently applied across the organization? But the more we focus on that, the less we focus on the human being. So the number one thing I would suggest you pass on to your clients is, do you really know the people who are working for you? Because, I mean, we're in a talent shortage right across the world. It shows no signs of easing until 2030. And so we want to make sure that those people, when they leave the house or leave the office, that they choose to come back, right? So one of the best ways we can do that is that they feel that great sense of connection, that they know that they have something to contribute, they're valued, and that they're understood. So we can ask them questions, we can acknowledge them, say that we're listening by acknowledging something that we've noticed. If something's frustrating them, how do we help them reduce that barrier, or certainly not stand in their way if we are the barrier or our systems or processes are being the barrier? I think that all of that stuff is really essential for people feeling like I am not a number.
So that sounds fairly straightforward, fairly simple, and I go so far as to say elegant. One of the things that I've seen is that some organizations put an incredible amount of effort into developing an acknowledgement program of
Mm-hmm.
some sort, and a lot of money and a lot of time. And I think the more that they invest in the complexity of that, the less willing they are to change it. So even when it's no longer being effective, they've got so many costs that are sunk into it. It's like, we're going to reward this way, especially if the person who developed it feels that their job is on the line, if that program is being criticized. So in terms of simplicity or complexity, again, do you have any guidelines around when you're thinking of implementing a system to ensure that it's going to be effective?
Yeah. Well, like any system, and we know this in the continuous improvement world, it needs to be nimble enough that you can continually improve it so that it's the newest best standard. So I have no problem with organizations having recognition programs and systems. I think it's great. If you don't do the one-on-one stuff well, then really you're wasting your time on all the rest. But let's assume, because you work with a lot of high-performing companies, I know that. Let's assume they do that well one-on-one, they do that well as a team. Yeah, there may be some things that we can continue to polish and work on, but as people who've been married a long time, we know that you always have to continually invest in relationships, right? That's all a good thing. Well, I know, I'm sharing massive insights here about all kinds of things. But really, when it comes down to those organizational systems of recognition and acknowledgement, how can we actually build into our process a review? So how do we plan, do, study, act? Where's the study piece? And then the act is how we change it and we adjust it. And if it's so rigid that we are locked into contracts with companies that have a vested interest in us always buying their kitsch, I'm sorry, I'm a little biased. I don't think people need a shoe shine kit because they've received a certain number of accolades. I'm a little wild that way. But if you have a lot of time and money invested in things and you can't change it, this is beyond just recognition systems. That's probably a sign that there's a problem, right? You just can't be nimble enough in today's world for that.
So I've two final questions. I don't want to consume a lot of your time, but one of them is how, because a lot of the things that you describe would quite often be packaged in the context of a coaching program, a coaching or mentoring approach. So do those link naturally, or should those be kept separate, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I am a professional certified coach. I think coaching should be part of the skill set of all leaders, of all staff, especially high potential staff. Because the more we can ask questions as opposed to tell people what to do, the more resourceful we're going to have our pool of talent. And today's world where change is just, it's almost cliche to say that, change is constant, but also the need to innovate is absolutely essential for your competitive advantage. And this is no longer just in the for-profit world. This is in the not-for-profit sector that they don't even have enough money to budget their balance. If we're not innovating, and if we're not innovating with the people who are doing the work, then game over. So coaching is essential as a peer, as a leader, as certainly as a senior leader. If we're not asking more questions than we're telling people what to do, then we are missing out on a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
What I'm saying.
Oh, I was just practicing my. You've been doing this for quite a while. So without revealing any trade secrets, what is sort of the coolest new thing, the one where you kind of go, wow, that is really unique, without necessarily giving away competitive advantage? So something in the last year or so, say, that's quite new.
Hey, people are welcome to buy my IP anytime, because that means that the world is becoming a better place. But one of the things that I've noticed a lot of companies seeking out some interesting, exploration is twofold. One is, how do we actually do a formal recognition audit? Because they are realizing that this is the most inexpensive, easiest way to retain their top talent and they see the impact it has on productivity and profitability and customer loyalty. So this is something I'm seeing. And the other piece is those really progressive companies are starting to invest in having their own version of social media in-house, where they're automating their recognition. And again, this is not a substitute for conversation. Go ahead, David. You have a question? I could see it.
Just when you say automating, what aspect of it is it communicating it, or is it?
Yeah. So I mean, a great scenario would be that all of your employees in your organization are in this database. It's all behind your firewall, so it all happens within your the privacy of your own shop. It can be, though, global, though. You can be acknowledging people working cross-functional teams all the time. You could be acknowledging somebody in another country, in another time zone, real time. It encourages the concept of resource gossip, which is, I'm talking positively, not necessarily even to you, but I'm sharing with the rest of the organization or with your team or with your boss the great things that I've noticed.
So the automating is not automating the content. It's enabling people to do that.
Absolutely, for sure. Because, as we know, there's so often that people don't actually get in the same room together. But even if you are all in the same building, isn't it great for people to have that spirit of acknowledgement? Absolutely. So it can be as basic as something really cool that's happening at Northern Lights College right now, which is in Northern BC, as I'm sure you know. They're doing this. The executive director of organizational and HR had free tickets. She said, hey, everybody, I want to know who's amazing in this organization. I already know it, but you tell me who you think deserves 2 extra tickets I have. And she was bombarded, like within 2 hours by lunchtime. She had so many recommendations. Then a chair got involved, and then the president got involved, and then a dean got involved, and the head of alumni. So within a week, so many different leaders were putting out their own charges for let me see what great stuff is happening out there, who deserves these tickets. It creates this amazing culture of gratitude. But a slightly more automated version is where you have your own type of instant messaging system where you can send a message to somebody. That's kind of what I was referring to originally. It doesn't even have to be that formal. But there's all kinds of systems out there and apps out there that are allowing organizations to not just have the verbal acknowledgement, the team celebrations, the staff appreciation events. All those are important. And it allows you to, especially with our newer generation who are used to everything being text, let's bring the communication mechanisms that they want into the workplace. So it's not an either or, it's a both and. And so now we have all of the ways in which people are used to communicating, ones where we can acknowledge and celebrate each other's greatness. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. That's super. Thank you. I look forward to sharing this with my colleagues and my clients.
Awesome. Thanks for the time. Bye, David.
Bye, Sarah.